All right, hello everybody. My name is Quad Hopkins, and I'm back for another episode here. Just continue my IM journey here, and today we're gonna kind of go on a different path, different route here. We're gonna push Octaway for just a little bit, and we're gonna focus on another IM identity access management tool, um, Microsoft Entra. And I do have a previous video on Microsoft Entra, but I'm gonna get rid of that video and revamp this, replace it with this one. But today is really about um, coming from an identity access management, like maybe entry level role. Not This is not coming from a identity engineer, IAM engineer role. This is more of like help desk or more of an introductory about we're gonna like go over topics such as users, groups, what RBAC and what RBAC is, and we're going to go over privileged identity management, what that is as well. And we're going to do a quick demo to demonstrate those capabilities in Azure. So I just wanted to give you a just a again just a disclaimer here. This is not for engineering type roles, or this is just someone who's just breaking into an Azure or identity access management in Azure. You may be a company that has Active Directory, and your company's moving to the cloud, and that's where you're going to be doing a lot of your identity access management in the cloud instead of Active Directory. So this is more kind of the audience for this. So let's get started here. Let me go share my screen. All right. Um, all right. So let me go second here. Go into my Azure tenant. All right. Go to my Azure tenant. Uh, all right. All right. Let me move down here. Move myself down here a little bit. And this is the Azure portal. And if you guys aren't familiar with those who are just breaking into the cloud, this is the Azure portal. This is where pretty much you're going to be doing your day-to-day like administrative tasks, whether you're in identity access management, maybe development team, cloud engineering, or networking team, or so forth. This is where you're going to be creating and managing your resources, securing your resources all on this in this platform. So let's get started. So again, just the subject of this video is just going to be Azure, pretty much around Azure RBAC roles, users, groups, assigning RBAC and assigning privilege identity for extra layer security. So just to give you guys a little context. I'm going to go with your documentation here. There's a difference of so if you're coming from an Active Directory and identity access management, um, and you're moving to the cloud, and your company's just going to be using this as your identity access management solution right now. So Azure AD is more, in a sense, more structure. You have a hierarchy. You have OUs, you have groups, you have, you know, it's a more structure, and in cloud in Azure, it's more a flat structure. So, but we do have some type of hierarchy in Azure of how Azure's laid out. So when you create an Azure account, you're going to have by default a default tenant, and you're going to have a default root group. So, so your default root group is is pretty much like you're at the directory level. It's like your top level. So, but here I just wanted to show you this documentation on the management levels and hierarchy here in Azure. Um, consists of management groups, subscriptions, resource groups, and resources. So this is kind of like a structure, a logical structure. So when you have, like, say, for example, hey, if someone says, hey, I want contributor access at the subscription level. Well, just as you see here, you have the subscription here you will assign to a particular set subscription. So, but management groups are like the top level group. And then within you can have usually typically in an organization, you're going to have subscriptions within management groups or management groups within management groups. So it depends on how your company is structured. But here's the base kind of structure of hierarchy where you have management groups, subscriptions, again, resource groups, and resources. So pretty much to go over that. So let's start with management groups. Management group is your top kind of your top level right here group. And then you have your subscriptions. Your subscriptions are basically is like, hey, who's this? This is who's paying for it. So let's say I have a production HR team subscription or a networking team subscription. So the HR team and the networking team are going to be pretty much responsible for their billing within their subscription. So they're going to be paying that in that there'll be, well, most organizations, you're going to have maybe that's probably like a budget or something like that within that subscription. So basically, the subscription is just to manage kind of the cost, and this is the person pretty much responsible for it. Um, so again, here it gives you the detail. So again, it says manager groups. You can manage access, policy, compliance, and multiple subscriptions. And subscriptions, they're logical associate user accounts and resources they create. Like each subscription has like a quota limit of of how many resource quota limits today. For example, like virtual machines, you have a quota limit on that subscription, so you can only have so many CPU cores or in that subscription that you can create in that subscription. Resource group is kind of like a logical container with your resources that you contain your resources in. Um, so and so let's jump out of here and let's go to the Azure portal. Oh, sorry. First, I want to explain what we're explaining here. Uh, so when we're talking about identity access management in Azure, Azure, Microsoft has on Microsoft Entra. Entra is their identity as a service platform, and so it's not like Active Directory. It is like again, it's a flat structure, but there's a difference in Azure Entra. There are two types of roles that are in Azure, and is you have Entra roles, which are for just the Entra platform, Entra services, Entra resources, and then you have Azure resources like virtual machines, compute storage, um, resource groups. You have and so forth. You that gives you access to those roles give you access to the resources in Azure. So there is a difference. So just to show you, illustrate here, here's another article that we have. So in Microsoft Entra, when you first sign into your account, you are automatically a global administrator, which global administrator has like godlike privileges in Azure in here in Azure. So in here you have like again here in this illustration you have global administrators, application administrators, which you can manage all aspects of applications, app registration, enterprise applications, or application developer, billing administrator. Um, so those are some typical, and user access administrator is an entry level role as well. So basically covers a lot of the mainly the administrative roles at a directory level, if you want to think of it logically, at a directory level. And now beneath that directory level, which is here where we go here, which is you have your root management group. So this is the group that when you sign up for your Azure tenant and create it, this is by default what you'll have, a default a management group. And you can logically design your organization with beneath that. For example, like in this illustration, um, within Azure, you have the three basic simple defined roles. You have owner, contributor, and reader. Those are pretty broad, three broad roles. owner and contributor are considered as privileged roles. So, and user access administrator as well is within that as well. So there is a difference between Entra and Azure roles. So Entra, and this is by design by Microsoft. So just because, for example, you have global administrator, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean, you know, you can go and create resources in here. Now, there's a caveat to that. There are some Entra roles that can kind of blend in within Azure down to Azure. So in this illustration example, when you're a global admin, if you want to be able to create or manage Azure resources, you can elevate your privileges, and by default, your privileges will be elevated to user access administrator by default. So again, there is some roles that blend in, like user access administrator, um, you know, the role-based access administrator. There are some roles that do blend in. So in this case, so let's scroll down here. Again, owner, contributor, you can manage all, it gives you full access to manage all Azure, depending on where it's scoped to. So again, when we went to before, whereas you can be owner at the management group level, you could be managed, which is if you're owner of the management group level, it gives you full access to everything within it that trickles down from subscriptions, resource groups, and resources themselves. So if you have another role like contributor, which contributor is a pretty popular role, you typically give that in organizations where, you know, especially in enterprise companies where you don't want to have a user or a team to have the ability to assign other roles. So this is where contributor comes in. So contributor can do everything a owner can do except for grant RBAC. So these are something because in my company, this is something typically like we gear towards to, or I try to gear to a lot because again, I don't want that owner to be able to assign roles. But in real world basis, some teams that own their own subscriptions typically would be owner of their subscription. But what you can do is in that instance is you can add something called what they call conditions. You can put limits and conditions on their role where they can't assign other owners or administrators. So you can do that as well. I've done that before, and that's pretty common as well. So so let's get to the Azure portal here. So this is my Azure portal. This is your tenant. This is my tenant. This is I had this for a while. So there are two ways that you can manage users groups. You can do it through the Microsoft Entra Admin Center or Microsoft Entra ID. So since this is not a Entra ID course, this is just for, I guess, again, this is just for beginners in Azure or who maybe haven't worked in Azure a while and just getting into as far as identity access management side of things. So again, I want to show you a real logical illustration of management groups, subscriptions, resource groups, the Azure hierarchy here, if it will come up. All right. So if you can see, this is my tenant root group. This is here when I created this account, when I first joined this account. And then here, these are my management group. This is my top management group in here. It says Cloud Journey. So as you can see here, I placed all these management groups like test production underneath this management group here. So I'm not having any access at this tenant group here. So everything's going to be, so if I want someone to have reader through my whole organization, I'm going to sign it here within in this example my org here, my organization. So if you see here, within each one, I have one subscription within these management groups. So this is pretty much of that hierarchy I just showed you before. So let's go back to home. So again, since this is mainly around Azure RBAC, we're gonna do things. We're going to we're going to do a lot of this in here in Azure Portal. But again, it mainly it we mainly are using we're actually using Entra ID. So Entra ID is an identity as service platform, but so in order to go to you create users and groups, we'll have to go into Intra. So let's go to click on the Intra icon here. So this is what you typically will see in Intra. So again, you'll have here users, groups, like roles of administrators. This is what I was explaining earlier. So here so Azure has like a ton of built-in roles. They create built-in roles a lot. And sometimes assigning RBAC roles can be a little confusing because those who can probably relate to me here, you might have five different roles that can do the same exact thing. There may be one little difference. So, you see that a lot. A lot of it doesn't make sense to me. Even I've been it, don't I do this for a living, but it just doesn't make sense to me sometimes. But this is mostly all the administrator. Like you'll see a lot of the M365 roles in here. Um, Application administrator, billing. You'll see a lot of these admin roles here. AI administrator, that's pretty new this year. And so let's go back. And obviously, so let's go into a little practical here. So let's go ahead and about users and groups. So you typically those who've done Active Directory on-prem, it's no different have creating users and groups. You're going to have the same properties, you're going to see the same thing, but it's just not in, you know, it's not broken up into like like a structure like with OUs and you in a sense it's in a sense you kind of are, I guess, if someone can correct me here, because you consider like your groups, your management groups, and your subscriptions are kind of similar like that. But I could, everybody has a different opinion on it. But um, so let's go here and go to users. This is where in Entra you want to create a user. So I have a list of users. So let me go ahead and create a user. So if you see here, when you create a new user, you create a user and like basically I call like a cloud native uh user, and you can invite a user. That could be something you're working with a of another vendor and they're doing some work for your team, they're for your organization. So this is where you want to send that. You'll send them an invitation and allow them the necessary access to your tenant. So let's go here to create users. So let's go. I'm gonna create a principal name. So, what can I go with? So I'm gonna go with Billy, Billy, and I'm gonna go with Billy dot Johnson, Billy dot Johnson, Billy dot Johnson. All right, and as you can see, this is his mail nickname and then his display name. Let's say Billy Johnson. Hmm. So as you can see here, you're still going to have some of the same properties you would see like an Active Directory, like you have your user principal name, mail nickname, display name, and so forth. So, and then within Azure, you can auto generate a password, you can auto generate a password, but we'll keep it here because we're not going to log in as. But just wanted to show you the basics of how to create users and groups in Azure. But in the real world, um, when if you need to create an account within Azure, which most of the time you're gonna have an HR system that does that for you if you have it automated setup. But we're just gonna do it manually just to show you. So you can auto generate password or you can uncheck this and create a password for that user. So, but we're gonna go with a generate, and you can see the user password as well. And you can check and you can leave this check too. That way the account's enabled. So then we'll go to properties. So again, this a lot of this is if is really sh is not really much change. Still has some of the same properties in Active Directory, but it's just here in the cloud. So I can just say, hey, Billy, we're not gonna do this here, Billy and Johnson, and well, can't type today. All right, so member type is member, and we're gonna say job title. Let's just say help desk associate. Company, gonna give them my company name. Uh, let's say Cloud Journey and department IT, and we're just gonna give them a little employee ID. They're gonna give them something like we're just gonna put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 just as this example. Employee type. You know what? Let's make them a contractor. Let's make them contractor. Them a contractor. Yeah. Well, got it filled in. Contractor, employee hire date. Let's say he started today. And office location. I'll go with Richmond. I'll go with Richmond. I'll go with Richmond. Oh, I'll go with Richmond. Uh, so where city where I'm at. Office location. Just say Richmond. I don't need to put in an address. So, and his manager. Let's just put, you know, we'll put Darth Vader as his manager. Hope he's not a hope he's not a evil boss. And let's make it Darth Vader as his as you guys can tell I'm a huge Star Wars fan too as well. So he is the manager. And I think that's all the information that we are going to let's put usage location. Um you're gonna put this to usually sometimes and I'm gonna put United States. Okay. So then we're going to go here. So typically next you'll always be, whether you're creating user groups, you'll be prompted to go to assignments. You can add a group if you have a group that's exists. You can do this as well. But we're not going to do that. We're going to create a fresh group here. And then you can add a role assignment. Like if we click here, again, these are an intra. So these are directory roles. And be keep in mind, these are all the directory roles. These roles you will not assign in Azure. Again, these are all Entra ID roles, not Azure roles. So, and that's by design by Microsoft, So again, in order to elevate that, you have to be a global administrator that if you're say especially for example if you're a global administrator you have to elevate your access and which you'll be granted the user access administrator to be able to access Azure resources. You can't do it without that user access administrator role. So so we're not gonna assign any. We're not gonna. Let me see. Well, just let's just say. Let me see. Mm, all right. Let's say that we're gonna give this person a. Mm, mm, let's give him. Let's see. Let's see. Help desk. Since he's help desk, let's give him a help desk administrator. So basically, what he's going to be able to do is, as the script says, he can reset passwords in non-administrators and help desk administrators. So let's 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 give him that. Let's you know what? Let's we can either give that to him that manually, but you know what? I'm not going to do that because I'm going to show you why. So we could assign it to him manually, but we in the real world we want to add that role to a group. It's easy to manage through a group, and you members and as anyone would know, as like I said, it's no different, little different than AD. It's anybody who has that a member group has that role, inherits that role. So we're gonna go to review, and we're going to create. So I'm going to do refresh. Oh, well, it looks like I messed up his name. Call him Billy Johnny, but you guys get the drift here. So if you can, we'll go back to him again and go to properties. We can always edit properties. I want to fix his name. Say Johnson. Mm, yeah, we'll save that. All right. So we saved his name. These are his properties. All right, now this is where you can find if someone has group memberships or member access to applications on roles, licenses. And typically, I did forget to tell you guys, if most enterprise companies, you're gonna need a a P2 license if you're gonna have to have features like which most companies have, privilege identity management mainly to do that. So use companies you can use like a P1 or a P2, but mainly most companies like I know mine has pretty much P2 license. We have features like identity access management. I mean, not identity, I'm sorry, privilege identity management feature that we can use. So you can't assign privilege identity management on any lower licenses like free licenses or P1 license. You need a P2, or if you want extra features, you might need to get identity governance license. I think they do have like a Entra Suite license. If that's more like if you're M365, you have a in that kind of realm there. Um, but so we got Billy here. So let's go and go back to Entra and let's go to groups. So we're gonna create a new group. So let's go to groups, all groups, and then we're going to all right. So let's create a group. So in Azure, this is going to be a security group. And we have two different types of groups. We have a security group and M365 group. But in this case, like I said, we're doing Azure RBAC. So this is cloud group. This is gonna be it's gonna be a security group. So we're gonna name this group. Just name this a SG help desk admins. That's gonna be my group. So this group will provide desktop support. Uh, this, yeah, desktop support. So again, this membership type is here. It's a sign. It's not done. We have two different types of membership types. You can have dynamic or signed. So dynamic group is basically it's like another thing, kind of like Okta, where if a user has a certain attribute, where in this case a property, let's say, hey, he has a property of contractor, and whoever has that property can be automatically added to this group if it's set up that configured that way. It's kind of similar to like what Okta has with group rules. So let's say we want owners of this group. So typically in real world, the Billy's manager is going to be the one owner of this group, typically in the real world scenario. So got Darth Vader here and members. So let's put um we can do that. We can put Billy. Let's put Billy in this group and let's select. All right. So typically I put this group in the sense of, so if someone puts in a request, usually pe like people or enterprise use like ticketing systems like, let's say, example, ServiceNow, you'll put in a request to have a user. Let's say you got a new hire coming in and a new help desk. In this case, a new help desk associate that you hired coming in, and they fill out a request. Hey, I need to be accessed. I want access to this group. So basically, in most ticketing systems, as a user, if it's set up, but depending on how you're going to set up, in this case, a user will put in a request. That user's manager will get that request, and and then that once that user gets approval, the approval, then like if you have a system like ServiceNow, it will kick off a task where then that may whoever mainly identity access management team can grab that request and process that request for the user. So in this case, so say I want access, say, hey, I want access to this group. Darth Vader here is going to get a email saying, hey, your approval is needed for this request. He can either deny or approve or deny. So what we're going to do is create. So let's refresh, do another hard refresh. So I have a lot of groups here. So we create a group, we create a member. This is what we've done so far. We've done create a user, we create a group. So let's put some, and we gave this group oh, we got to give this group a role. So this is a help desk team. We're new help desk team. Billy's he's the first associated part of that new team. So let's grant them a role. So let's go to help desk admins, access. So um, did I do here? Administrator roles. Did I? I don't think I gave them yet. Mm, I don't need a custom role. Okay. All right. We'll get to that in a minute. Um, so what we'll do is let's go back to home. I'm gonna go back to intro. All right, roles and administrators here. All right. I don't need a custom role. And three others. Okay. All right. So let's say, okay, in this scenario, I want them to have, say, owner at, let's look at my management groups here. Let's say just I want them to have owner of my college journey management group. So what we'll do is, for example, I could either have them have access to here, or let's say I want them to have access only in dev or production manager group or test, or let's go to the subscription level. So I may have only want them to have access to a subscription level. So, but in this case, I want them to have access, let's say, owner of this management group, which not really in the real world you would do this, but this is just as an example. Um, so let's go here. So most resources in Azure all have and this with an access control tab here. So this is all the way down to the resource level itself. So here, let's go to, we have like resource groups here. This is where you can create like a group container that has resource group. Say, if I want to scope this down to a resource group, and if they have access at the resource group level, they don't have anything access outside of that in the rest of the subscription, nothing outside that, only what's in that resource group. So it's kind of like a container, a bubble, or a little that you only have access to a certain like area. So, but in this example, we want them to have access. So let's just say let's go to so here this is the IAM access tab here. So you have certain things here to look at. So let's just say, hey, I want to check someone. You can view your access. So we'll view my access. So I'm owner, eligible assignments. I don't have any eligible assignments, but I could, but I'm owner. And let's say, so if you want to check a list of all the assignments, so it's just only me in there, so it's not like a lot of people. But you'll see in the real world, you'll typically see like maybe owner, contributors, readers. This example, I don't know, key vault administrators. You'll see a list of different roles that are assigned. Or you can look at these are different. Again, a list in roles, which you can break them down to job functions. And this is one thing is I want to tell you what privileged administrator roles. So again, from the beginning, I explained these are roles and these are what Microsoft considers privileged roles. Owner, contributor. Here goes access review. This is what they can role-based access administrator. These are what they consider privileged roles. So these are predefined roles as all Azure roles or even Entra roles are predefined roles based on your job function. As again, they build new ones all the time. So it's kind of hard to keep up with them. And then you have deny assignments. You know, we don't typically use this. I know where my company doesn't. I don't think so. But let's go back to the checklist tab. So let's say if you want to check access. Let's say if you get a ticket in, someone's requesting access to a group. Let's check if they already have. Let's see what access or to the subscription. I'm sorry. Let's see what if they do. So we can check. Hey, Billy. So here, Billy. So Billy does not have he doesn't have any assignments. He doesn't have any eligible assignments. So so he doesn't have any. So let's go to add him here. Let's go see. Now, one thing I want to say about RBAC, you can in some organizations, which we can go and add this user, give this group the role, and it will have the owner, it would have whatever permissions I give it. But let's just say, for example, I want to add a lecture layer of security, which this is where privileged identity comes management comes in, which Microsoft has a tab called privileged identity management. This is where you give you give just in time access to um like so the better explain it would be like RBAC, RBAC role based sign. We give it based on like our roles, it's self-explanatory. You know, we grant the right necessary access, basically we file least privilege to so that that user gets the necessary roles to do their daily tasks. But privilege identity management kind of controls how long that person can use that elevated privilege, or how like basically you can have it for let's say let's say they can have it for a whole year, and let's say they can only access it 8 hours maximum of 8 hours a day. You can get granular with it. You can get granular with it if you want. So and plus you'll have all these different tabs here as well that you can see. But let's show you how to add them. So let's say let's say this example, I want them to have a privilege role. So let's just say I want them to have help desk. I want them to have user access administrator. So they're going to manage they're going to manage user access to Azure resources. Or I could just say, hey, we can um, we can add them, give them the role-based access administrator role, which they can manage access to Azure resources by assigning using Azure RBAC. So let's just give them let's give them that, and let's give them that. Again, this is what you'll typically see. So let's go locate that. Let's go SG help desk admins. So there's a group, and you want to select, and let's just say, hey, um, and let's usually typically in real world, like I know like some companies, but my company will put in like the ticket number. Let's just say task, I don't know, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say this is a ServiceNow task, and we put the task number in. So, teams, if you get audited or something, if you get an audit and say, hey, you always can reference that ticket number and kind of get an understanding, hey, was this approved by the manager, or was this what type of access was given? So this typically I don't know if other companies do, but I know mine's we my company, we typically put the ticket number as a description. So we put here. So this is what you'll see a lot too with conditions. So let's say we want to really, so we gave them role-based access administrator. So they can add any type of owner, contributor, privilege role. So let's just say I don't want them to assign owner. I can really limit that by clicking here. This is a recommendation by Microsoft. This is recommended. I typically really do this too in a real world too. Actually, I usually do this a lot because I don't want I typically don't want someone to have owner access that they can sign other owners, for example. But in an event, um, I typically in this scenario, I'll just I'll just allow this. I'll just um I'll just allow this and review and assign. Okay, so they have this role now. So let's just say we want to go back and check or do a refresh. So I want to check the access of my group. So if we go here to role assignments, as you can see, you have help desk SG help desk admins. They have the role-based access administrator at this resource. So let's go do it another way. So let's say we want to just check it by here. So we want to hit help SG help desk admins. So again, this shows you the group, this what access that this group has, and it has no eligible assignments. So again, let's go back to role assignments. All right, roles. Okay, so here's one thing here you can look at. It's maybe a little side note. So if you go to, let's say, owner, you know what, not say owner. Let's go with a different one. Let's say, let's go with, um, mm, let's go with this application group contributor, right? So this is what I use a lot. So I use this a lot when, to say you want, say, a user requests some access to a resource that you can't find a particular role, built-in role specifically for that. Because let's say if you give a user a certain role, then it may come with actions you don't want to give them, if that makes sense. You're gonna get, let's just typically like the owner role. You can put conditions on an owner role where you don't want them to be able to add certain roles. So, but in this example, we have a view, lets you view the permissions or actions. But typically I like to read in JSON. To me, it's just simpler, understand to me. So these are like, I use this when, for custom roles a lot. Like someone may say, hey, hey, Kwai, I need a custom role. I need these actions. So these are Microsoft actions like based on here, like you said, for example, this is Microsoft desktop virtualization. Um, and this is the service. This is pretty much the service, and then application groups, the groups, and then an asterisk means it has all permissions pertaining to that group. So, and you have here desktop virtual hot host pools read, so it can read everything. It cannot does not have read write permissions on this host pools. So, and then which you have here, which is called not actions and data actions. So, not actions is where let's say, hey, let's just say I don't want them to um, have Microsoft dot support. This typically would be right under in here in the not actions on, and then you have data actions. So data actions are let me give you a good best scenario to explain this. So if you have a storage account, for example, an Azure storage account, it could be a blob storage or blob storage containing data in it. So now if now you have what they call management plane actions and data actions. Management plane actions are, if you let's say you're a storage account contributor, for example, you can create storage accounts, you can create storage accounts, you can create containers, you can create a blob container. You could do that. But if you want to read the contents of the blob, like say that blob could be had passwords, it could have like, I don't know, for example, Terraform configurations, it could be, and let's say you have even if you can't view those because you need a data action to view that data. Even if you have owner role, let's say you are the owner of that let's say storage account. You're the owner of it, or you have owner at you can see all the storage do manage all the storage accounts within your subscription. You will not be able to see any data unless you have a data role. Again, you may have let's say I don't like a storage account blob data reader or data owner or data contributor. So it usually comes with like a prefix of data behind it. So those are different actions because I usually see this typically a lot. I've had people come and say, "Hey, I can't. I've created a storage account. I can't read my I can't read my data. I can't look at my data." But they need an extra. You need a data level role to complement that role you have. So this is what I typically like to look at and read for me. It's very easy to me. I don't ever go in here and look at this view. Um, so again, this is where I look at. I look at things a lot in JSON. Uh, so and that's how you can do it here. But what we did was we pretty much we added this group directly onto this resource. No PIM, no anything. We trust this group. We typically in the real world only would do this like if if you have like a reader, if there's someone just asking for a reader role, we're no problem granting that right directly on the resource. But if it's typically a privilege role, um, preferably like the management group scope or subscription scope, typically utilize PIMs to protect the resources or resource group as well. So let's go to here. I believe I have that privilege. Yeah, I believe I do have that. Because last time I didn't have my P2, I believe I do. So here, let's go over another topic. This is privilege identity management. So again, goes by the acronym PIM, if you hear that. So PIM provides just-in-time access. And the purpose of this is to provide a, a organization extra layer of security to to the Azure resources. So if I have Billy, an example of the user we created, Billy wants he needs owner of a subscription, and we only want him to be able to have just, let's say we've only want to have this role for, let's say he's working on a project for 3 months or something like that, and he's only allowed to activate it 8 hours, 8 hours, most at 8 hours. Let's say he's working on it all day, or you can do it, right? You can turn back to 2 hours. So you have a lot of granularity here, and you can really control how long that user has access to this. And also, it's a good for, let's just say you have, especially if your account, could get compromised, like a phishing attack, your email, like if a lot of this is very good as well to do, because if someone, you know, finds a way to get access to your account, you have, let's say you have owner of this, or someone gets hold of my account and gets compromised, they could have access to my whole organization, my whole tenant, and could do a lot of damage, could delete my whole resource structure if they want to. So this PIM putting PIM is really highly recommended by Microsoft. I'm a big proponent of it as well. Um, so you know, I think that, so if someone were to able to get into my account, or you know, and also they can't, because they would have to like I have, especially if you set up MFA in your organization, you set that up, you have that in here, that there's that extra layer of security. Someone hacks, like try to get in my account, they can't do much in here. They have to have, like I said, again, with my MFA, and then with with PIM, this is what it's used for, extra layer of security. Um, so hope I'm explaining that okay, or if I'm not, please let me know, or reach out and give me a place a comment if I'm not. But again, this is just typically like really um kind of level one type. Really, if you're access management, this is if you're totally all in the cloud, this is pretty much what you'll be doing, and you'll get basically requests and tickets on this access, and this is what you'll be doing. So, but again, this is not an engineer type role or anything like that, course or video. Um, so here you have what they call entre roles, which we discussed earlier what they are, and we have um go back, entre roles, then you have Azure resources. So here, this is new, this is the new feature. So in Azure it wasn't like this before. This is a new view. So let's just say you can say, hey, we want to give them access to a certain subscription. So we want to go, let's say we want something in the production management group. Let's say this, for example, and we want to go into the production subscription. So, so what I'm doing here is I'm giving a person access to this subscription level. So if I wanted to give them access to a resource group, I would go to, let's say, this prod resource group. And then you can either go down to, if I had a resource here, you could, like say a VM, it would be show up here. So in this instance, I want to give them access to, um, let's say, down to the resource group. So, but if I don't, I can always, as I said, well, let's keep it here. We'll go to the resource group scope. So I will go to manage resource. Oh, I don't have my P2 license. Ah, can't show it. Sorry about that, guys. I'm so sorry. So typically, if you go to activate your role just in time, so right here, so this is where you'll go. So if you get assigned a role in PIM, there are two types. You have eligible and active. Eligible is that kind of how long, like let's say, for example, if I'm explaining this right, let's just say, hey, let me go in Azure Resources. Just say, hey, I have a user, say user access administrator, which I have, which we directly assigned it onto that help desk group. So if I assigned it via PIM, you would see this group under eligible assignments. So basically, eligible assignments is what permissions I have available to me when I need them. Active assignments are I have those all the time. So when I log into Azure, I have that out the box. I don't have to do anything. So and this works the same with Intra as well. And groups, and that's another video I will be doing groups as well. So when you create a group in Azure, they have a feature called where you can PIM will manage permissions on that group. So if you create a group and if you create a group and you can enable PIM, let me show you what I'm talking about here. So if you go into Intra and you go to groups, and let's just say we want to create a new group. And let's say we want to create a new group. I think you can see that where I'm talking. Let's go here and see that. Um, so here, this is pretty much where I'm talking about. Okay, so this this group, if you click this option here, enable this option, what will happen is, so when you go into when you create a group and you enable this on your group, so there are two ways so basically what this is saying is if whatever roles I assign to this group and this function feature is enabled. So if you remember when we went back to privilege identity management, say I clicked under my roles and it will give you a list of roles that you currently have available to you. This is kind of similar but different. So when you enable this feature in this, so this provides just-in-time access to owners and members, meaning so when you go back to privilege identity management and when you look at your role, your Entra ID roles or your Azure RBAC roles, instead of seeing the applications or not applications, I'm sorry, the permissions or built-in roles, you'll see you're going to see two types, owner and member. So if you're a member, let's say I have a user access administrator assigned to that group via PIM. So when I PIM up, I will be PIMing up a to a member, PIM up to the member, which meaning I'm a member of that group, but in order for me to gain access to all the roles that are assigned to that group, I will I will inherit that I will have to PIM up to that group. And once I PIM up, I'll get all the roles associated with that group out the box. Now, typically this is good because I know a lot of companies you may have, let's say I have 10 different roles. If this feature is not enabled, I would have to PIM up 10 different times every day for this role. This helps solves that. And so if I have 10 roles assigned to that group and I'm a member of that group, all I have to do is PIM up to member and I'll get all the 10 roles that I have. So it eliminates a lot of that frustration. So if I highly recommend this feature as well because, you know, it is I'm glad they came out with this. I wish we were using it a little bit myself, but this is a good feature to have. Again, this is available if you have a P2 license. You can always go back and enable this. It doesn't have to be like right when you create it, but you can enable this if you want. And basically what this will do is take your roles, it will group them. It will kind of like in containerize them into that group or owner. So you could pin up as a owner or group. So, but and then also not many people or enterprise I'd use access reviews that I'm aware of. Um, they don't. They might have user other ways to manage reviews or permissions and pursue it. So, but this is pretty much just a level of basic user administration and group administration and RBAC and PIM. So I hope this helps you guys. If you guys have any questions, please leave a comment, leave a comment on this video, or if I missed anything that I totally missed. Again, this is a video for just for beginners, and I thank you guys and appreciate you guys' support, and I will be back for another Azure video coming next week. So I thank you and appreciate you guys. And good night, everybody.